right, welcome to the MacCafe. We do this every first and third Monday at 10 Central. Join in when you can. We're going to have some short demos and some Q&A about the Mac. Anything Mac, VoiceOver, text edit, pages, whatever you want to talk about. So sit back and enjoy the ride. All right, this morning we're going to get a brief recording from John Panarese, who's going to talk to you about VoiceOver utilities.
VoiceOver utility. This is one, as far as I'm concerned, this is one of the features that a lot of users neglect or they barely touch. And I'm not always sure if it's a matter of people not understanding what is in there, or the basic fear that some people have when it comes to any kind of preferences, that if they're going to change something and they're going to break it, and they'll have to call Apple accessibility to get things fixed, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully this lesson will deter any kind of apprehensions or misunderstandings that people have with the VoiceOver utility. So the VoiceOver utility is basically the control panel for VoiceOver. It is where all of the VoiceOver preferences that you may be interested in customizing can all be found. It is completely separate from, VoiceOver itself is completely separate from all the accessibility features, though you can reach the VoiceOver utility through system preferences and the accessibility pane if you really want to go the long way. Now, as far as the keyboard command goes, it is Control Option F8, or if you choose to use the caps lock key as your modifier, it's caps lock F8. But keep in mind with new Macs, unless you've changed the system preferences for keyboard, where you have the checkbox for using all F1 through F12 keys as standard function keys, you will have to include the FN key on your keyboard as well. So I'm just going to...
Opening VoiceOver utility. VoiceOver utility, window, utility categories, table, general. Selected has keyboard focus.
Okay, so I have opened my VoiceOver utility. So there is a categories table that you really want to pay attention to. That is where all of the VoiceOver preferences start. Now, if you're running anything earlier than Big Sur, there's 10 categories. If you're running Big Sur, it is 11 categories, because they've added at the very bottom the VoiceOver recognition category, which I'm assuming they're going to add a lot to as time passes. That just seems to be a feature from hearing from Apple accessibility people that they're really working and building on, as far as using artificial intelligence and machine learning to help blind people, where you might have situations where an app is not accessible, or if you're on the web and there's, badly labeled, badly tagged images or items, that hopefully as time passes, the recognition category, the VoiceOver recognition, will get better and better and be able to clarify that stuff for us. So the categories is set in a table. And if those of you who have Mac experience, or have worked with me, or have taken previous courses with interaction tables are one of the 7 major categories that I sort of have compiled that require interaction. So you interact with the table with caps lock shift down arrow, or Control Option Shift down arrow.
Utility categories, table, general.
Now the general category is selected by default, and I'm going to come back to that. I just want to go down the list here to give you guys a kind of a overview here. So if we keep VO down arrow,
verbosity,
you have verbosity,
speech, navigation,
web, sound, visuals, commanders, braille, activities,
VoiceOver recognition,
and then the VoiceOver recognition.
General.
So I just did because I have a full-size keyboard, I just did Control Option Home and jumped back up to the top of the categories table. You can access the categories using this table, but you also can use Command 1 through 0 to access them directly as well. But I'm going to do this demonstration using the long way because I'm going to kind of go through each category and give you sort of an overview of what each one does. Now, there's two ways you can sort of approach this. The long way, getting to the actual category pane, the preference pane for that category, is to stop interacting.
Out of utility categories, table.
And VO right arrow.
Speak the following greeting after login. Welcome to Mac OS. VoiceOver is on. Content selected. Greeting. Edit.
Now, the general category is one of the categories that does not have any subcategories. There are, I think it's 6 categories that have more than one pane available for you. Now, the way VoiceOver presents these subcategories is what it calls tabs. So you'll be selecting a tab to activate the specific category subcategory that you know of the preference pane that you want to view. And I'm going to show you that momentarily, but let's just go through the general category, which is the one of the ones that does not have a subcategory. So you just kind of go straight through the preferences. So the first item is basically the greeting that VoiceOver speaks whenever the computer boots, as long as VoiceOver is turned on. And
welcome to Mac OS. VoiceOver is on.
So that's your standard, greeting that you get. Some people don't realize that this is an edit box and that you can actually change and make it say whatever you like it to say. On my laptop, it actually says, "What is thy bidding, my master?" when my laptop starts up. Just because it used to entertain my nephews when I was up in Buffalo. It used to give me a hard time about it. Now, if we keep going.
Display welcome dialog when VoiceOver starts. Uncheck checkbox.
So this is the welcome dialog. If you ever turn on your VoiceOver for the first time, you get that whole spiel, that pre-recorded spiel offering to get you into the VoiceOver quick start tutorial. If you'd like that to start again, the next time you turn VoiceOver on, you can check this box. Otherwise, you don't need to have it checked.
Keys to use as the VoiceOver modifier. Control Option or caps lock. Keys to use as
so you can choose your VoiceOver modifier keys, whether you want to use the voice control option, the old school standard way, or if you want to do the cool kids way of using the caps lock, which Apple added a few operating systems ago. Really to attract the people or make it easier for the people who are JAWS laptop users, because the JAWS key is the caps lock key in the laptop layout of JAWS. So it makes it easier, I guess, for people to transition over. This is a pop-up menu, so you can VO space on it.
Menu checkmark control.
And you can specifically choose one or the other, or you can leave it like I have it where you can use both.
Control Option, Control plus Option. Caps lock, checkmark, Control Option or caps lock, Control plus Option or caps lock.
So there's your 3 options. I just VO down arrowed to let you hear them. And I'm just going to hit escape to keep it the way
Control Option or
that I have it.
Portable preferences off. Image. Portable preferences.
We'll talk about portable preferences a little bit later, because that is a really cool feature that sometimes people don't understand what it does.
Setup button. Portable preference. Allow VoiceOver to be controlled with Apple scripts. Checkbox.
That's an important one. Allow VoiceOver to be controlled by Apple scripts. Sometimes new users find that this checkbox is not checked. And the reason why this is cool is that if you use Keyboard Commander, you can allow VoiceOver scripts to be used with VoiceOver. So by default, for example, if you do the right option key with the letter T,
February 23rd, 12:41 p.m.
VoiceOver will announce the time and the date. So this will only work, though, if you have this checkbox checked. And there are other scripts that you can download. I have a battery script if you're a laptop user that will indicate how much battery percentage is left on the laptop. And there's other ones out there that can give you your RAM status. I guess, back in the day before we had these 8 and 16 gig RAM situations, sometimes it was really a good idea to keep track of how much RAM usage you had. So there's a lot of different battery scripts, but the point is, check this box if you plan on using the Keyboard Commander. Now I'm just going to jump back up
Toolbar.
to the toolbar.
VoiceOver utility. Utility categories.
I'm going to go interact with the table.
In utility categories, table, verbosity.
All right, so verbosity is the second category. So I'm going to stop interacting here. I'm not going to go through everything here, but I just want to point out a few things.
Speech selected tab 1 of 5.
So here is an illustration of what I was speaking about earlier with the subcategories being presented as tabs. So verbosity is one of them that has 5 subcategories. So we have
speech selected.
Speech as the first one, and the first one is always selected by default. But if you want to see any of the other subcategories,
Braille tab 2 of 5.
Braille.
Text tab 3 of 5.
Text.
Announcements tab 4 of 5.
Announcements.
Hints tab 5 of 5.
And hints. So those are your 5 subcategories for verbosity. And if you wanted to hear any of these specifically, you would just VO space to select it. So I'm going to go back here.
Text tab 3 of 5.
And I'm just going to do the text here.
Selected.
So to text verbosity settings affect word processing in terms of how VoiceOver will read text, how it will deal with capital letters, things of that nature, punctuation. So I'm just going to VO right arrow past the other tabs.
Announcement, hints tab, punctuation, sum, punctuation, pop-up button.
So here's all your text verbosity settings. So you have
punctuation.
You have punctuation.
Repeated punctuation. Spoken with count. Repeated punctuation.
So you have repeated punctuation.
While typing, speak.
Typing echo.
Characters and words. When moving the cursor. Speak text, the cursor passes. When move.
So moving the cursor.
When text attributes change, do nothing.
Your text attributes.
When encountering a misspelled word, play tone. When encountering a misspelled word, pop-up button.
Misspelled words. So this is basically all of the different things that you can customize so you can make VoiceOver read or perform in a certain way. So, for example, you'll notice as I go through here, much of the pop-up menus I have set to do nothing or play a tone. Some people like a lot of verbiage. They like VoiceOver or their screen reader to tell you like everything that's going on. I tend to only want VoiceOver to really speak the things that matter. That's why I do a lot of stuff with just playing tones, different sound effects that give me hints, as to what's occurring instead of having VoiceOver say it outright. But everybody's different. You can adjust these preferences, any way you like. So it's in the verbosity category and it's the text subcategory. So the other categories you can certainly explore. For example, let's go back
to while text spoken, repeat song, hints tab 5.
Let's do hints here.
Speak instructions for using the item in the VoiceOver cursor. Unchecked checkbox.
So this is if you want VoiceOver to kind of tell you the hint that is available for an item.
When an item has a help tag, speak help. When an item has a help tag, pop-up button.
So you have a pop-up menu here.
When an item has custom actions, speak help. When an item has custom actions, pop-up button. Speak hints after delay, 2 seconds. Speak hints after delay, slider.
So if you want the hints to be on, but you don't want it
to wait before hints are spoken.
You don't want it to kind of say it right away. You want kind of a delay. You can change this slider. I've delayed mine 2 seconds just because I don't want it on top of when VoiceOver is actually speaking. I will often, though, turn off the hints. But remember, if you do have the hints turned off, VO Shift N will speak the hint anyway.
Set how long to wait before hints are spoken. You are currently on it.
So, it will give you the tooltip with VO Shift N that is associated with that control or that item. I'm going to go back up here to the top. So I'm using, in case you're curious, VO Shift Home
toolbar
to jump up to the toolbar, and then I VO right arrow.
VoiceOver utility categories, table, in utility categories.
So I interact and I go down
speech
to speech. Now, speech has 2 subcategories.
Voices, selected, tab, 1 of 2. Pronunciation, tab, 2 of 2.
So you have voices and you have pronunciation. So the voices is where you can manipulate the different speaking rate, pitch. You can add voices, custom voices, if you want to have other voices than what Apple provides for you by default. If you speak additional languages outside of English, they have, I believe, I don't know, 30, 40 different languages you can choose. There's also all kinds of English voices, including British and Irish and Scottish and South African. So there's a lot of different in Indian. So there's a lot of different things you can do with the VoiceOver voice. But keep in mind, some people don't realize this, that if you use Shift, Control, Option, Command, left or right arrow, you can change your speech settings on the fly without having to go into the VoiceOver utility.
Voices. Selected. Closing voice menu. Voice automatically select based on language.
Hello.
Voices. Selected. Pitch 50%.
There we go.
Volume 100%. Intonation 50%.
Would help if I was holding down the right keys.
Braille table English unified system. Voice automatically select based on closing voice menu.
So
Voices.
I'm just
selected.
I'm just using the Shift, Control, Option, Command, and right arrow to go cycle through the different options. And if you use the up or the down arrow, you can change a specific option. So my point being that you do obviously have it in the VoiceOver utility if you want to explore that, but you have a quick way of accessing the speech stuff on the fly, so you don't have to go into the VoiceOver utility. The pronunciation subcategory allows you to customize the VoiceOver dictionary. So if you find that the voice that you're using does not pronounce a name or a place or just any word, may annoy you, you can go into pronunciation and you can add an entry to the pronunciation table, and in which there will be two edit boxes. The first edit box is spelling the word out exactly how it should. And then the second edit box is you would type some kind of creative spelling that will make VoiceOver pronounce that word or name properly. I've had a few clients I've worked with whose last names used to drive them crazy about how they were pronouncing how VoiceOver was pronouncing their last name. So I had to sort of figure out using, very spelling of their last name to get it to pronounce it the way that they wanted it to be pronounced. And you may find from time to time, for whatever the reason, that VoiceOver pronounces even a regular day word in a strange way that doesn't appeal to you or just rubs you the wrong way. So this is where you would go to make that change. I usually don't get bothered by stuff like that, so I really have not added. Let me take a step back. I've done some corrections to last names. I do a lot of sports stuff. I'm a hockey person, and there are a lot of hockey players with European names, and sometimes it totally butchers the way certain players' names are pronounced. So I like to go in and kind of fix it to make it more appealing to me. But other than that, I really don't care about the other pronunciations all that much. It doesn't really bother me.
Utility categories table. Speed in utility.
So I'm going to go back to the tables. I'm going to jump down to navigation. So navigation does not have subcategories.
Initial position of VoiceOver cursor. Keyboard focus item. Initial position of VoiceOver cursor. Pop-up button.
So this is a pop-up button, and you probably should leave the stuff in here for the most part as is. If for the keyboard, this is setting. The initial position is the keyboard focus. Will make it possible so that if you are like in a text edit document and you've read or you're working on it and you're kind of halfway through the edit and you command tab to another app, when you go back to text edit, the focus should remain where you left off. So because the keyboard cursor should be where you last left it, even though you went to a different application. So if this setting gets changed, you'll find some really weird behavior with VoiceOver when you open up applications. So this is kind of why I recommend that you leave that setting be.
Grouping behavior, standard, grouping behavior, pop-up button.
I'm not going to get into grouping behavior because personally, I'm an interaction nut. I prefer interaction, and I don't, I've not really explored the options for grouping behavior. I just leave it on the way it is, as it's always been by default, because I just think from teaching a person how the Mac operates, how the interfaces for applications work, it's easier to keep it so that you interact with the specific areas. I know sometimes people come over from Windows have a hard time with that concept, but I just try to kind of keep people, on course, and eventually they will get it. And most of my former Windows clients, or people who were using both Mac and Windows for work or whatever, have told me flat out that they wish Windows had an interaction type of feature.
Synchronize keyboard focus and voiceover cursor. Checkbox.
So you can synchronize the keyboard. You want to keep this basically checked.
Mouse pointer ignores voiceover cursor. Mouse pointer. Pop-up
now
menu.
you can have a pop. This is a pop-up menu, so you can have it follow or ignore. And there's like a school of thought. Some blind people will tell you to have it ignore. Some blind people will tell you to follow. For the moment, I have it set to ignore because it just is working better in certain weird websites that may not be that accessible. This tends to make the things play a little bit more nicely in my experience, but you always have the ability to go in here and change it and kind of experiment for yourself.
Allow cursor wrapping. Checkbox.
So you have cursor wrapping that you can check or uncheck. And even if you uncheck it, one of my future clients, James, pointed out to me yesterday that there is a keyboard command that you can use even if you don't have this particular checkbox checked. I leave it checked, but I try to advise my newer clients not to check this. So what this basically means is if you get to the top or the bottom of a list or an interface area, if you have cursor wrapping on, it will wrap back around to the beginning. In other words, you don't have to back all the way out again to get back to the start. But as I said, I didn't realize that there was actually a keyboard commands. James at the end of this can point out. I don't remember off the top of my head what they were. I meant to look them up and write them down, and I just completely forgot to do it.
And that's where we'll end. If you want more of that tutorial and more, then you can go to macfortheblind.com. We'd like to thank John Panarese for that brief demo. And it is time for our good old question and answer. So, if you have questions, raise your hand and I will send you an unmute request.
Anyway, I don't know if there's other beginners on this call, but what I did want to say is that I ended up having to reinstall the OS and everything because I didn't listen to Cliff enough.
And I don't think that's not a beginner move, because you gotta know what you're doing to reinstall the OS. I mean, it is easy, but if you don't know what to look for, then
I didn't. And I called the accessibility people, and I could not hook up a monitor, so I couldn't have them look at on the phone. So what I wanted to say is that, yeah, there were a lot of choices that I had to make that I didn't know about. But as far as the navigation goes, a table's still a table. You have to interact with it. All this stuff that Cliff and John Panarese and all these people keep banging on and on and on and on about will get you. I mean, it won't tell you the answers to some of those questions, but it really works. I mean, all of those are the same keystrokes that you use in recovery. It's just that I wouldn't have known which of those discs to pick. But
yeah, and it gets confusing too, because when you go in there, it shows 2 Macintosh HD. Trust me, I've been using for a Mac for 10 years, and when I went in there, and with I think it started with Catalina, where it had Macintosh HD and it had the word data after. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, the one of them just says Macintosh HD, and the other one.
Yeah, Macintosh HD
data
is the one that you want to keep and erase, and Macintosh HD data is the one that you actually want to get rid of. So it basically starts you fresh as if you just took it out the box from the Apple Store.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is that even though it was difficult, I was able to do it, and I'm not really that advanced a user, people. So,
well, you're advanced enough, because a lot of people wouldn't even have took that plunge.
Well, it was pretty much like that, or have an expensive paperweight. Or wait till I could get to the Mac store and have them do it. But I don't want to do that.
Right.
But, you guys are, between you and John, you guys are just really, really helpful. And if people listen to what you guys say and just take it a little step at a time, you know, you'll be able to use your Mac. And I don't think I would have been able to do that kind of thing with a Windows computer, even though it is way better than it used to be. So I'm kind of feeling like if I can do it, then other people might be able to do it too. And
make sure when you formatted the drive that you make it APFS, because otherwise Time Machine won't use it. That stands for Apple File System. That's the new format that they want their Time Machine backups to be on. So make sure you select APFS.
So, I don't know whether I did that or not, but I can just plug it in and do that.
Yeah, once you plug it in, it'll tell you if it's not or not, and it'll say we need to erase this drive to do it to the APFS format or whatever it's going to say. But yeah, it'll let you know.
So when I go into Time Machine, I can just do it through going into Time Machine, right?
Yes. Once you pick that drive, it'll see that if it's the right format or not, and it'll let you know we need to erase this drive to make it the right format.
Oh,
and you'll just tell it yes.
Well, even a few months ago, I wouldn't have dreamed of doing all this stuff. So, if anybody's feeling intimidated by the Mac, just keep going,
And take your time, because it's not an overnight process, but once you get it, it's fun. You'll like it. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I want to be like Mary when I grow up. I don't know what you guys were talking about.
Basically, I got the MacBook Pro M1 and I had the Mac Mini M1, and she bought it from me, and I had restored it, and I think I missed a step, so that's my fault. And she was resilient enough to find the answer, call Apple Accessibility, and figure it out. So.
Awesome. That's awesome. Mary, I want to be like you. Okay, I have a question about numbers. And what are some good resources to just start to learn numbers on the Mac?
Well, one, I can send you a iBook that's going to give you a way better explanation than I can. Because what I'm
really?
Because I'm not a numbers person. I loved JAWS and Excel.
I remember you said that, like peanut butter and jelly.
That's right. The only thing that goes better together than peanut butter jelly is sugar and Kool-Aid. I'm telling you. But I always cheated. I always wrote my Excel spreadsheets and saved copies and imported them into numbers because nothing would change. So, but I can tell you, like Matt was telling you at the help session last week, that if you want to add something up and you double tap or you VO spacebar on it, or on the Mac if you do VO command spacebar, it will give you options. And there's usually a formula. I don't know what the auto sub, if somebody else is on here that knows, can tell you, but on Windows there was an auto sub command, which I think was alt equals. If you did that, it would automatically add up the list of cells above it. I don't know what that is on numbers because I don't use it enough. The only time that I've used numbers is when I've imported a spreadsheet that I had already written, modified a few labels, and I was done with it. Numbers is not something that I use on an everyday basis. So, but I can, like I said, I can email you the book that I have on numbers. I haven't even opened it myself, but it's basically a book getting to know numbers on the Mac from a voiceover perspective. So it's exactly what you need.
That would be awesome.
You can read it. You can read it on your phone, because I know you're not comfortable with books on your Mac yet. But yeah, you can read it on your. As long as you can open up books on your iPad or your phone, you'll be able to read this book. So I'll email that to you.
How do you do autofill on the Mac? Because I get confused, because when I try to do it, it says you could use up or down arrow and press the return key, but I don't always think it works right.
Now, are you talking website? Well, it's got to be, because that's where it is. So,
yes.
Say for instance you go to gmail.com and you want to autofill. What you'll do is make sure Quick Nav is off, of course.
Yeah, I don't use it.
And just hit the down arrow by itself. And the first thing you should hear is whatever your Gmail address is. Hit enter, and it'll autofill it for you. But you have to push the down arrow to tell it what you want it to autofill.
Okay, so press the down arrow first. Let it tell me what I want to autofill, and then
hit enter.
After that? Oh, hit enter. Okay, very good.
But yeah, but just make sure it's the account you want, and that works on any site. So say you go to Capital One, and you and your husband and your granddaughter all have an account on that browser. I'm not saying you do, but just make sure you go to the one you want and then hit enter.
today I went on my contacts, and when I went to letter B, there is only one contact there. Why are they disappearing?
Now, the one thing I will mention, I don't know if AOL has a contact account per se, but if you go to that device, go to settings, go to mail, and then go into AOL and see if your contacts are turned on or off, because that's probably what happened. You don't have all your contacts in iCloud, and when you re-added that account, you probably didn't select contacts to be synced up. So they're probably still there on the server, but you just got to tell your device to bring them in. If it's on the Mac, then you're going to go to System Preferences, go to Internet Accounts, interact with the table that says Accounts, go to AOL, stop interacting, go over to another table. It's going to say services, or I forgot what it says exactly, but it's a table. You interact with that table and make sure contacts is selected. So it's a checkbox. It'll be mail checkbox, contacts checkbox. Make sure contacts is checked. All right. Well, if there's no other further questions, as you know, my new office hours are Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 4:30 for iMessage. Email you can do anytime. As long as you know I won't get back to you except between those hours. Everybody have a nice one. Alright, thanks for joining us on this edition of MacCafe. Remember, for all announcements and updates, join us at stiritup.com.